Hi, folks. This is your friendly neighborhood DMPT 2600 basic editing instructor, Mr. Thomas, making a new tutorial video for you. And this tutorial video covers Chapter 1, touring the Adobe Premiere Pro interface. Now, bear in mind, we're just going to go over highlights from this chapter. We're not going to go over it word for word. So you definitely want to read the chapter, do the exercises in the chapter, because that is the only way you'll get a full understanding of how to use a program, and that is the only way that you'll be able to do well on the quizzes and the exams and projects and things like that. So please do not use this as a substitute for actually reading the chapter and doing the exercises. You will not see a video tutorial for every chapter in the book. Okay, of course, it's just certain chapters, and we'll only be covering certain things. But I feel it's important to do some video tutorials at the beginning to kind of get us started. The first video was on getting started, how you basically organize yourself with the application and with the textbook and downloading the bonus content and whatnot. So now we are going to actually go into Premiere and take a tour to kind of show you the interface, show you the different controls that you're going to be working with to edit your film or your video, film and video, that is. Well, first of all, let's go over the different ways that you have to launch Premiere. You want to know them all, okay? Because the difference between a master editor and a person who just kind of struggles their way through the project to do the application to get their project done is the master editor knows virtually every way to do everything. Your education in becoming a master editor starts today. So I'm not just going to show you the easiest way or one way, the most convenient way to do things. I'm going to show you every way practical to do certain skills. That way you will know this program inside and out. As an editor, you'll be paid large amounts of money if you do that in the industry. You can get paid, rather, large amounts of money for having two qualities. You are very good creatively and technically means you know how the program works, you know how computers work, you're a good problem solver, you can even work with your hands with computers and other technology. So you're good, very good creatively and technically, and you're also very fast at what you do. Usually when you get footage from a production that is a film crew that's shooting, they're always behind schedule, and they always want their footage, they always want their edited film yesterday. Okay, so that means they're on a time crunch. So being as fast as possible and being as good as possible, being as reliable and professional as possible, it's what's really going to make a difference between you and the next guy who just learned this program entirely from some 13-year-old making YouTube videos. Okay, so um, that being said, I'm gonna show you the many different ways we have of launching Premiere Pro, and you want to know them all. The first is, now I'm on a PC. I'm sorry, I take that back. I'm on a Mac, but if you're on a PC, your screen is going to look a little different, but you will have a similar way of doing the same things. So I'm not speaking an entirely different language for PC people. You're just going to have to, look on your desktop for the dock of apps that you can launch, as opposed to looking in the Finder, which is what this is. Finder, desktop, same thing. Okay. If I scroll down to the bottom of my screen on my Finder on a Mac, I can see that my dock pops up. Each icon represents a different application that can be launched. And this one with the PR in the purple here, that's the Adobe Premiere Pro 2020 icon. I can click that icon, and that's one way I have of launching Premiere Pro. I'm not going to launch it yet because I want to show you the other ways first. I can also go to the Launchpad icon. It's like a silver medallion with a rocket ship on it. Click on that, and you will see a list of different applications on your computer. This is if you have a Mac. You don't have an equivalent of a Launchpad, at least not in this form, on a PC. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll through, and I see, hey, I swiped left, by the way. There's my Premiere Pro 2020. I can click on that. Okay, I'm going to hit escape to get out of this. Okay, another way I can do this is I can look in the applications folder. Okay, I'm going to click Finder. Okay, on a PC, it's probably a folder called like Programs or something like that. And you can get there by accessing the Windows button, the Windows menu. You would click on that, and you would have another section you can go into called Programs. And when you click on that, you'll see all the programs that are loaded onto your computer. I go into Applications on the Mac, and I can go down to Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. If I double click that, I go inside of another folder. I go inside of that folder, and I see an icon for the app, Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. I would double click on the application. This is the third way to launch Premiere Pro. This fourth way, you can do this. You can do this on a PC in a different way. He has a search box at the bottom of the left-hand side. When you click that Windows icon, you'll see a search field where you can search your computer for all the apps on it. Well, we call it the Spotlight search on a Mac, and you can see that there's a little magnifying glass I can click, and my Spotlight search window comes up, and I can type in Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. I like that. You can see in the window below it, top hit, Adobe Premiere Pro 2020. I can double click on that and that would launch it. Okay. And finally, the last way that I can launch Premiere Pro is I can double click on a Premiere Pro project file that I want to continue working on. Okay. So let's go and find a Premiere Pro project file. That shouldn't be hard to find because I have so many of them. And I'll show you what a Premiere Pro project file looks like. It's not there. Let's try. Oh, I got so many files. Oh, here's right here. It says 2017, but it's the 2020. It's the 2020, same as the 2020 file. So I'm going to the Adobe Premiere Pro CC 2017 or 2020 in your case, Classroom and Book Lessons. And I'm going to go to the Lesson 1 folder, spin it down. This is if you organized your lessons, as I said in the previous tutorial. See, I have an assets folder with all my video clips that they shot in folders here. Okay, see that? All right, stills. All my video clips are in the video and audio files folder. Okay. So I really only have 4 on the main level of the assets folder, and inside of video and audio files, those are all the video clips. Inside of stills, those are some still images like, you know, photos, still photos, like a still photo of an eagle. That's not a video clip, it's a still. Of course, I have a folder called city. Okay, and these are stills of the city as well. Okay, so pretty much this system is set up for you. And as you download and uncompress those asset files, you just drop pretty much most of them, all of them, are you going to pretty much going to drop into the audio and video files, okay, to organize it. All right, so the idea is let's find a Premiere Pro project file. Now, what we just saw were asset files. Those are basically anything you shot with a camera, anything you recorded with, say, it could be audio, so you recorded with a phone or audio recorder, anything you put together in Photoshop or Illustrator. Those are other programs in the Adobe Premiere Pro cloud, or in the Adobe Creative Cloud. Anything that's like a raw material that you want to edit, that means cut up or modify in some way, that's called an asset or media or footage, okay? And I keep all assets, media, or footage in the assets folder in these nicely organized folders that are organized by the type of footage that's living inside of there, okay? Lesson 1 through lesson 18, inside of these folders, mostly what you have are these project files, okay? One thing I want to show you is a difference between a project file and a media file. We know that a media file, if I double click on it, I'll do that again with a video file. I'll go into here. Let's go to Andrea Sweeney, NYC. And if I control click on it, I go open with, and open it with QuickTime Player, and I play it. See, it's a video file, okay? That's media. Asset, that's an asset, or that's a footage file, okay? It's in the assets folder. Now, these project files are much smaller in size. So for example, let's go back to the Andrea Sweeney. I'm gonna select it one time, and I can really see, let's get a bigger one. Well, doesn't really matter. I can see that this file in my little viewer window here, it says, this is not in Premiere, by the way, this is in the Finder outside of Premiere. It's a whole 32.3 megabytes big. That's kind of small, but you're going to see that's much bigger than the average project file. This project file is only 53 kilobytes, which is much smaller. Okay. Moral of the story: assets are much, much larger in size than project files. That's because assets is actually video, usually video that you shot, that takes up a lot of space on your hard drive, whereas the project files are generated by Premiere and they only take up a small amount of space. The reason why project files take up a small amount of space, but media takes up a large amount of space, it has to do with how digital editing of any kind is done. Basically, well, let's launch a project file first. Okay, so I'm going to launch lesson 1. I'm going to double click on this project file. I know it's a project file because of the PRPROJ. Let's double click on that. Okay, that's the final way to launch Adobe Premiere Pro, by the way, because that's really what I was getting at. But while this is launching, I wanted to tell you, when you import footage from the assets folder into Premiere and start to edit, it may look like you've actually physically brought the footage into Premiere and you're working on it. That's not what's going on. The assets still stay in the assets folder outside of Premiere, okay? But when you launch the project file, we're going to see it in a second. The project, well, if not on this project, on maybe I'll show it to you at the end of the tutorial. One of the last things to show you is the project file. Say you want to play back that video clip of the cars, and it's inside of Premiere because you want to edit it. You see it inside of Premiere, but that's not actually what's going on. When you play it back inside of Premiere, inside of a Premiere Pro project file, to be more specific, when you play that video back on the inside of a Premiere Pro project file, what's happening is that Premiere Pro project file is going to the assets folder where that Andrea Sweeney video is saved, and it's playing it back from there, but it's playing it in the Premiere interface. So it looks like it's in Premiere, but it's really not. Okay, really the project file is a kind of like a recipe to bake a cake. Okay, what's a recipe? A list of instructions. Your project file is a list of instructions. You may start off with a blank project file, okay? But as you make decisions in the timeline and edit things, it's like you're building your recipe, you're writing your recipe as you edit your film. And of course, in order to bake a cake, you can't just have a recipe, you have to have ingredients as well. Okay, you have your cake, you have your sugar, your flour, your milk, your butter, whatever. Those are your raw ingredients, your hard ingredients. Your raw ingredients, those are analogous to the media, the footage, or the assets. Okay. In order to bake a cake, you got to have your recipe, your project file, which doesn't take up a lot of space, list of instructions, and you also have to have your assets or media. That's your raw ingredients. Those do take up a lot of space. You can't have one without the other. You have to have both. But as you're editing, you're making decisions that are being saved to that recipe or that project file. Okay, that being said, convert project. Essentially what this is saying is that Premiere Pro 2020 is a newer version of the program than the version of the program that this project file was originally made on. It's asking me, do I want the program to upgrade this project file so that it is now a Premiere Pro 2020 file? And it's fine, you can do that because it's going to upgrade it, but it's not going to delete or overwrite the original file. That's why it gives it a name, lesson01_2. As you can see, I have a lesson01_1 because I've done this before. Okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and click OK. Okay, so now this is something that you are definitely going to come up against from time to time. You're gonna see this from time to time. This is called a link media window, or really an offline window. Essentially, there's a link between what we're going to find out later on are source clips in Premiere. There's a link between the source clip in Premiere that's inside of the project file. The source clip links to the actual video clip that's outside of Premiere in the assets folder. When you see this link media window, it's saying, hey, the connection between the connection between the source clip in the project file and the media in the assets file, it's broken. Okay. Say, for example, it was going to the documents folder to find this mid-John clip here. The reason why I know it's a problem is because there's no check mark by it. All these check clips are clips that were used in this project, and it can find them, it's fine. This mid-John clip, it can't find. So it's asking me about it. And it's saying, hey, you used to keep it on the desktop, for example. Okay. It's not on the desktop anymore. I don't know what it is, where it is. Please tell me where this mid-John clip is. Okay. The fact that mid-John cannot be located initially by Premiere by itself. The mid-John clip is in a state of being in media offline. It's in a state of media offline. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. But I know for a fact that this mid-John 00028 file is a problematic file for this book. It's something they seemingly never fixed. So I'm not going to even worry about it. I'm going to click offline, and it's just going to skip that one file. It's not going to bother trying to find it. We don't really need it for what we're doing right now. You won't need it for a long time. But at some point, I'm going to come back and show you how to fix that. Let's click offline. It's going to go ahead and continue doing what it's doing. Okay. Now we have our interface. Okay. And I told you I was going to give you a tour of the Adobe Premiere Pro interface. Okay. There are 4 main frames and a couple of panels. I have a tool panel and a VU panel, or VU, sometimes we'll call it a VU meter. VU stands for volume unit meter, because as I play back video, it's going to also play back audio, and the louder it is, the more these levels, or these green to yellow to red bars, are going to bounce up, just like you see on an equalizer on a stereo system. But the idea is this: each one of these frames has panels inside of it. Okay. Now you can see I'm on a laptop, just in case you don't know. I'm on a Mac Pro laptop. So the window is the user interface for Premiere. That is all the panels and frames and controls I'm going to be using. They're not that big. So in order to have a better view of an individual frame, okay, I can select the individual frame. That means hover my mouse over it. The frame is outlined in blue when it's selected, and I can press the tilde key. The tilde key. The tilde key is the key that is directly to the left of the number 1 at the top of the keyboard on your keyboard. Okay, it's above the tab key. All right. So if I press that, it's going to take me to full screen. Okay, for just that one frame. Okay. Now, one thing I want to show you is that frames contain panels. So essentially, let me go back. I'm going to press the tilde key again to make it small again. This is the lower left frame. Some people call it the project panel by default, or the project frame by default, because, you know, mostly when we're looking in this frame, we're looking at the project panel. Okay. But let's be more specific and say it's the lower left frame. Press the tilde key again, make it full size. Notice that within this lower left frame, I have these little tabs like Media Browser, Libraries, Info, Effects, Markers, History. Okay. These can have different information, they have different uses. We'll talk about those later. But the idea is each tab is called a panel of a media browser panel, a libraries panel, an info panel, an effects panel, a markers panel, and a history panel. These are all panels that live inside of the lower left frame. The upper left frame is the same thing. Sometimes they'll just call it the source panel, but they really mean the source panel and all of the other panels living in this upper left frame. So in that source panel, I have the effect controls panel, the audio clip mixer panel, and the metadata panel. Okay. I have, I'll finish with these panels, and then I'll go back up to the screen and talk about the work areas or the workspaces. I have a program panel, or a program monitor, as we call it. I'm going to click on it, and I see it has the blue highlight around it, meaning that it's now the active window. Anything I do, like if I play, fast forward, or reverse. When it's active, the only way I can make changes to a window is if it's the active window. Okay, so always look for that blue highlight to tell you that a window is active. Okay, so this is my program monitor. Okay, you can see the program monitor. I'll load something into the source monitor. You see the program monitor and the source monitor look similar, but they are similar in a way, but they're used for different things. I have a timeline panel down at the bottom. Okay, all right. You can see I have my VU meter over here I mentioned earlier. And if I press the space bar, I can see my VU. That's audio. It's measured in decibels. Right now, it's going up as high as like negative 10 decibels. Okay. This is my timeline panel, and I have my toolbar right here. Okay. Now, within these panels, there are other like little subdivisions that we'll talk about later. But let's talk a little bit about what each panel is used for. Okay. In order to work in Premiere, you first have to import assets into Premiere. So you have to have some raw material to start off with, something you shot, something you created in Photoshop or Illustrator, or something you recorded on your digital audio recorder, something like that. You have to have footage. Yes, we do call it footage, even if it's audio, and even if it's still images like Photoshop or Illustrator documents. You have to have footage to import in. When you import footage into Premiere, it lands in the project panel. It lands in the project panel. There are a couple of different ways I can look at the project panel. You can see this is, we'll have these real nice big icons or nice big thumbnails here. Okay, that shows you a pretty picture of what the clip is all about, what's in the clip. One thing I want to show you is that in the icons, by the way, this is that Midjohn 00028 clip that was never relinked, so it's not offline. The question mark with the dog ear page means that the clip is offline. I can go back and fix that at any time, but we're not going to worry about it now. The second clip, the name of the clip is in the lower left-hand corner of the clip or beneath the clip. 00020 is the name of the clip. .mp4, MPEG-4. That's the codec, or that's the type of video file it is, MPEG-4. We'll talk about that later. 1907, that's time code for how long this clip is. This clip is 19 seconds and 7 frames long. We'll talk about the address system of time code later. This icon right here that looks like a little audio waveform, that means this clip has linked audio. It's not just images without audio, it has linked audio. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this next one. Same thing, name of the clip, 0001JD.mp4, duration 13 seconds, 23 frames. I have the linked, I have linked audio, but you'll see it says linked audio used one time. And also I see a film strip icon. It says video used one time. Of course, I know it's video even without this video icon because I can see something in this thumbnail. Okay. The reason why it says it's one time because when I double click that project one, lesson one project file, it's like a project they've kind of already started off on for me. Okay. So we're kind of coming in the middle of a project that the creators of the book have kind of already started on for you. All right. So that's what the used one time means. I've already used it in my final project, and you'll notice that when the clip is used already in the final project, it has a blue, the icons are blue. All right. So we said the function of the project panel was to contain clips that you import into Premiere that you may or may not use in your final product or your final project, your final video, your final film, whatever you're working on. Now, this is one way to look at it. Right now, we're in icon view. We're in icon view. And it's nice and pretty, and beginners like it a lot because it shows you exactly what the clips hold. However, it's not very efficient, and it doesn't give you a lot of information, believe it or not. What an editor wants to know about a video clip like this one is not only how long is a clip and what is the name of the clip, but there's a lot of other information that they can find out about that clip as well. Like, for example, what is the bit depth of the audio or the sample rate of the audio? What's the frame rate for the clip? Is it shot at 24 frames per second or 30 frames per second? This is information we can find out about each one of these clips, but we can't find out. He's not going to give it to me in icon view. I have to go to another view called list view. Okay. List view can be accessed by clicking the icon to the left of the icon view icon at the bottom left hand corner of the project panel. Okay. I'm going to click the list view icon. Look at that. Now I have the exact same thing here. I have the exact same number of clips, source clips, we call them. It's just that I don't see the pretty icon. I don't see the pretty thumbnail with the pictures in it. Okay. But look at what I have. I have frame rate, media start, time code, media end, time code. When does the footage start? When does the footage end? Media duration, how long is it? Video in point, video out point. If it has an in and an out point already, we'll talk about that later, and so forth. All of this information to the left of the source clip's name, all this information is called metadata. Metadata. So for example, video info 1280 by 720, that's the size of the image or image size or resolution. Okay. That's simply metadata about the clip called 001JD.mp4. So the name of the clip is on the left and everything to the right of it is metadata. And of course you would trace across in the row. It makes it easy for you because so you can highlight, it makes it highlight. So it's easy for you to find out, match up the video duration, for example, with the 0001JD. You don't have to figuring out, okay, does this 13-second and 23 frame video duration apply to this one or this one? It has it nicely highlighted for you so you know exactly what you're talking about. You know exactly what you're looking at. Okay, so in addition to being a repository for source clips that you import, by the way, I'm very specific as far as parlance. That means I'm very specific as far as the words I use and vocabulary for really, really important reasons. Okay. Once again, there's another master editor tip is you have to be very specific about what you're saying. You can't leave any room for vagueness because you're working with a whole train of people who are going to get this footage either after you or while you're working on it. And if you give someone kind of a vague term or you give them kind of a vague notion of what you're talking about, somebody's going to mess up something really bad. And that mistake is going to be compounded by each person who gets the footage after them. Okay, so you want to be as precise as possible. Like I said, you want to be obsessive compulsive with this material. So in any case, any clip that you import into Premiere that appears in the project panel, we call it a source clip. So all of these are source clips. Okay, all right. Also another function of the project panel is you want to organize in the project panel. That means that I just have a whole bunch of clips out here just laying out in the project panel. You may say, well, that's okay, isn't it? No, it's not. This is just a handful of clips, believe it or not. You could have hundreds or thousands of clips in your project panel, and pretty soon it's going to get very confusing to look at. If you're looking for a very specific clip, you're going to have a hard time finding it. So what you want to do is you want to be as organized with your source clips as possible. This is called good media management, and it is something that you must learn at the very beginning. Usually, when you start in the film industry in Hollywood, you don't start off as an editor. You may start off as an intern, somebody who works in shipping and receiving, then maybe not an assistant editor, but a apprentice editor, and then an assistant editor, and then the editor. And that could take 20 years or more to climb that ladder all the way to editor in the main Hollywood system. Maybe, but maybe not. But the idea is that the assistant editor's job, which is a very good, high-paying job, and some people just are assistant editors for 20, 30, 40 years. One of their many jobs is to make sure that all of the source clips are properly organized into folders. We call folders bins in Premiere. We don't call them folders, we call them bins. We want the assistant editor will make sure that all the clips are organized properly in bins, and the bins are properly labeled so that when the editor comes in and starts to edit, they don't have to go searching all in the project panel or on the hard drive trying to find a clip. Everything is properly labeled and in the right place. So we're going to find out a little later on how to make bins in detail, but there are like 6 different ways, and I'll show you one, and I'm going to just pretty much arbitrarily say these actually, maybe I don't have to be arbitrary. Maybe I can, if I double click a source clip, it's loaded into the source monitor. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But the idea is I am going to, hey, how would you like to be able to have the metadata that you're seeing here in list view, but also have icons that you can benefit from having to kind of see what the clip is all about, but still maintain the metadata? You can do that, and I'll show you how. Let's go to the project panel. Remember, this is what this is, the project panel. By the way, I know which tab is active, which panel is active based on the white underline beneath the name. So this is the project panel. I'm going to click on these three horizontal lines. That's going to open up what's called the project panel menu. Anytime I click on something with three horizontal lines, it's a menu. So I'll call this the project panel menu. Click on that, and I'm going to go down to thumbnails. Okay, if a item has a check mark by it, that means it's active. If it doesn't have a check mark by it, that means it's not active. I'm going to click on the check mark for thumbnails, and look at that. All of my icons change to thumbnails. Okay. By the way, I'm going to make these thumbnails bigger so they're easy to see by clicking and dragging on my zoom slider at the bottom of the project panel, just like that. Okay. By the way, before I'll show you how to toggle. Let's see how to toggle back and forth between the list view and icon view. But let's go back to, let's uncheck thumbnails. Okay, notice that I have different icons here. I really only have two. I have an icon for a sequence. That icon for a sequence, that represents this timeline, which is a collection of clips I've edited from the source panel, from the project panel to the source panel, and then to the timeline. So that's what a sequence is. It's a collection of source clips, or we call them sequence clips when we get them in the timeline. But these icons here, so you have a film strip icon with the audio waveform. This is the icon for what they call a movie. A movie, that means there's picture and there's audio. Of course, we talked about the icon for an offline file, but there are many other types of icons that we'll talk about as we go along. Okay, but we're gonna stay in thumbnail view. Once again, to go to the project panel menu, go to thumbnails. Okay, you can make that. That's about as big as you need it. One other thing I want to show you is the preview menu. Okay, I'm going to click on the project panel menu again and go down to preview area, not preview menu, preview area, I'm sorry. Notice that there's a little area that pops up at the top of the project panel, and whichever source clip is selected, whichever source clip is clicked, you can see that it's going to show you a preview of it in that preview area. Okay, it gives you all kinds of metadata about the selected clip as well, like the name of the clip, the size of the clip. You know it's a movie, that means audio and video. It's 1280 by 720 as far as image size. There's a pixel aspect ratio of 1.0. We'll talk about that later. It's used one time in my timeline already. It has a duration of 11 seconds and 6 frames and a frame rate of 29.97 frames per second. Progressive, that's what the P stands for. The audio is 48,000 hertz compressed. So basically what that means is 48 kilohertz. Change those 3 zeros to a K and say 48 kilohertz compressed stereo audio files. Or it's a 48 kilohertz compressed stereo audio file. Okay, that's what's associated with this source clip. And the audio is used, of course, just like the video, one time in the timeline. Okay, so that's the preview area. It's very useful. Okay, say for example the poster frame, that is the little icon here in the project panel for the source clip. Say it's not very useful because it doesn't really show you the part of the clip that you need to see in order to see what it's all about. You can easily change the poster frame by going up to the preview area in the preview area, the little preview area in the preview. Go up to the thumbnail in the preview area, and let's drag this. I can either drag this little playhead. You can see I'm scrubbing through the footage as I drag it back and forth, or I can hit the space bar or hit the triangle to play back. And I find a frame that represents to me what this clip is all about. Maybe I say, hey, I'm really interested in those clouds and that mountain in the distance for whatever reason, and I want my poster frame, which does not resemble this, to resemble this particular frame in the clip. So I've found the frame that I want. I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna hit this poster frame button. Looks like a little still camera. Bam, and look at what happens down to my clip, my source clip down in my project panel. The poster frame looks exactly like the poster frame up here. Okay. All right, just a little trick that may come in handy. So that's all I'm going to cover for this video. We learned a little bit about the project panel. We didn't actually import anything in yet. But actually, one other thing I want to do is I just show you at the project panel, this section here, I can delete a source clip by selecting it and then clicking on the trash can. There is a new item icon at the lower right-hand corner of the project panel that lets me generate different things. Like I can make a new timeline or a sequence. I can make captions or like words on the screen, like for hearing impaired. I can create a universal counting leader. Lots of other things I can generate using that new item button. I accidentally made transparent video. I don't want that. Next to that, I have a new bin button. Remember I told you folders are called bins in Premiere? If I click on that, that's one way to make a new bin. There's my bin. Bins are useful for organization, good media management. I'm gonna make a bin, call it sequences, and I'm gonna drag this desert montage sequence. This is the icon for a sequence, by the way. A playhead, 2 video bars, and an audio bar. I'm gonna drag and drop that inside of my sequence bin. And as you can see, as I click the triangle to close it and open it, you can see that sequence desert montage is saved inside of the sequences bin. The sequence icon desert montage is the same thing as this timeline right here. That's the desert montage sequence right there. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do for the project panel. We covered a little bit of the project panel. We gave you a quick tour of the different windows. We don't know exactly what all the windows do yet, but we're going to cover that in future videos. So I will see you in the next video.